Welcome to the Grit.org podcast with Colby Harris and Brian Harbin. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
Welcome back to the Grit.org podcast. My name is Colby Harris. Alongside me is Brian Harbin, and we're here with today's guest, Dana Gordon. Dana, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, we're really excited to break into your stories from growing up in Colorado to being a golfer at University of Florida and moving in now to the sports industry, doing a lot of work with the Olympics, the NFL, about to head to the draft here soon. Very, very interesting space. So we're excited to hear more about your story, how you ended up there. Go ahead and start off by telling us about growing up in Colorado before moving to Florida, because I was raised in North Carolina, so similar situation from the mountains to the beach. Tell us a little bit more about growing up there and what your upbringing was like in Colorado.
Sure, yeah. I was born in Gunnison, Colorado, and grew up in Crested Butte, Colorado, so very much a small ski town. My parents moved there, I think, in 1977, and they opened up a small Austrian restaurant right at the base of the ski area. So our life was skiing. You know, I think my mom taught me to ski when I was 2, and that was my weekends. You know, it's funny to think about now. I was 9 years old, but I would go with my friends and we'd ski all day, every weekend by ourselves at 9 years old. And my PE was skiing. Like, it was kind of our lives. And yeah, they owned an Austrian restaurant, and my sister and I would work in the restaurant and wash dishes and help carry out the plates to the customers. You know, definitely a family business. Definitely.
And that's why I wanted to ask real quick too. I mean, what did you learn? Obviously being very ambitious from within sports, now business as well. What did you learn from growing up in a family business?
Yeah, I think my parents just were really focused on teaching my sister and I that you have to work hard, right? You know, we didn't even realize we were working when we were 8 years old, I guess. We just knew that was part of the family business. But it definitely taught us that you have to just put in the time. You have to work. You got to, you know, there's no sitting around. If you want to, you know, do well at something or succeed, you have to just put in the hours and work hard.
And so I know you started skiing early. Any other early love in sports?
Yes. So when I was 9, when we moved to Florida, to Gainesville, I did gymnastics first, actually. So 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I did gymnastics. I was on a team in Gainesville, level 5, level 6, did competitive gymnastics for 2 years. And then I think after 6th grade, I knew gymnastics was not going to work for me. You know, got too tall, couldn't do a couple of the skills that I needed to do to move to level 7. So I did love gymnastics a lot. I loved the fact that it was, you know, I loved the team that I was on. Definitely gave me that team atmosphere. But in 7th grade, I did tennis. I wanted to try a little bit something, did dance, did tennis, and didn't even start golf until 8th grade. And so, yeah, I did some other sports, but I do think gymnastics really helped me with the other sports as well. I mean, it helps with just balance. It helps with learning timing and tempo. It helps you learn to, you know, conditioning's part of every sport as well. You know, I've always enjoyed working out, and I think those years in gymnastics, like, you know, really taught me that's important. I mean, I think about now, if my 5th grade was 4 hours a night, you know, 4 nights a week. And which is, you know, I think about my kids now, they're not on a team doing 4 hours a night, but, you know, our conditioning was like an hour a night. So I think that base and learning those skills and learning kind of that work ethic in like 5th and 6th grade definitely helped me with other sports.
Yeah, I actually did gymnastics when I was growing up as well. I don't know if I ever told you about that. You know, I had an interest in it. I guess it helped too that like a bunch of the girls in my class were really interested in it too. So they would take me, and I loved it. But I think it's even a confidence thing, because they're asking you to like do backflips and back handsprings and all that stuff, and I was terrified. So overcoming that was huge for me.
Yeah, and it's just it was something I stayed with also. As I did cheerleading 9th and 10th grade as well in high school, and then that was my first job when I turned 16, was coaching at the gym that I had competed at. So that was my job junior and senior year in high school, was working at the gym.
Very nice.
So it's called Sun Country Gymnastics. So shout out to them in Gainesville. Yep.
So I wanted to ask too, before we talk a bit more about your recruitment, picking up golf in 8th grade, I mean, it's one of the hardest sports out there. Tell us a little bit more about getting into it and how you managed to progress so fast. I mean, you're talking about spending multiple hours training in gymnastics and things like that. I would imagine with golf, it had to have been at least up to par with that, if not more, to be able to progress the way you did.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So 8th grade, my dad was a manager of a snack bar at a golf course in Gainesville, West End Golf Course. So it's actually a par 3 course, a par 60 course. But I would basically go out to West End, 8th grade, start hitting balls. My family would play golf there. It had lights, the course, so we would play Friday nights as a family. So just started playing more and more and more. And I remember as an 8th grader, they would let me practice with the Buchholz High School team when they practiced at West End. So I thought it was so cool as an 8th grader, trying to practice with the high school team. And just put in the hours, figured out what the junior tournaments were in Gainesville, or in Central Florida. West End had a pretty well-known junior tournament in the state of Florida. And but figured out the tournaments. There was always one in Ocala. Just really kind of just dove into it then, and then knew that would be my sport that I wanted to do in high school. My parents were very much like, you have to do a sport in high school. Cheerleading's fine, but also complement that with another sport as well. So that is what I did freshman and sophomore years. I cheered in the fall, and then golf was in the spring. But then I just really focused in the summers on practicing, and it was my parents were in on supporting me. I remember my sister would drive me to, golf practice at the course, and so she was involved, and my parents were involved, and it just took a lot more to really put more hours into high school, but I knew probably going in my sophomore year that it was something I wanted to pursue to do in college.
Yeah, and I'm always super curious with kind of that high school as you're starting to get better at a sport and realizing, okay, I'm pretty good at this, and obviously been practicing a lot, going to tournaments, but I'm curious, what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome in order to get better, or was there a time period where you hit a wall and were just like, okay, I don't want to play golf anymore, and maybe how you overcame that?
Well, it's a little bit, I think if you want to be a real top junior golfer, you're going to have to travel across the country too. There's a great junior golf program, the American Junior Golf Association, the AJGA, but it was also expensive too. So my parents just weren't going to pay the money for that. So I never once played in an AJGA tournament. And most of the collegiate golfers, coming into college, that's their route, is playing the AJGA, and you get to be a ranked amateur that way. I actually didn't do that. I didn't do any of those tournaments. I did state tournaments, but I didn't do any of the big amateur tournaments. And for my family, it was a lot of trying to figure out the smaller tournaments that would still get me recognized by coaches. And I specifically remember a tournament in Daytona Beach, I think, that the University of Florida coach was there watching. It must have been my junior year. But, I figured out some of the tournaments in Florida, but for me, I wasn't going to be traveling across the country playing big tournaments.
Yeah. And tell us about that decision to kind of go all in on golf. Was there a defining moment there, or any story around that decision?
A little bit. My sister was actually dating a University of Florida golfer at the time, so we all kind of got to know the UF golf team members, and I just learned more about it, and I just knew that I really wanted to play for Florida. I think we knew the woman who was coaching for Middle Tennessee State, and so I had an opportunity maybe to go there. And I think we looked at a couple other schools in Florida as walk-on opportunities, like Florida Atlantic, I think UCF we looked at, but Florida just came, and I went and I met the University of Florida coach. I think meeting her at that one tournament as well, and I did the whole process of, back in the day, it was recording the VHS tape and literally sending out the VHS tape to schools. And I did that, and I think probably sent it out to 10 schools. And then the University of Florida coach, her name was Kim Haddow. She called us up, and she said she wanted to come to my house and meet my parents. And that was it. I think I remember her coming to our house, sitting at our dining room table, and she said, I want you to be on the UF team. And I was so excited, being from Gainesville. I was like, this is great. The University of Florida, it's obviously an amazing school. And to have her, come to our house and say that, it meant everything. So that was it. That was right then. I knew. I was like, perfect. And we hadn't discussed yet if I would redshirt the freshman year or or what it would be like, but she knew that if she could give me some scholarship for housing and books, and it wasn't a big scholarship, but I was also getting the Bright Future scholarship as well, so I could combine that. And my family did the Florida prepaid, so it was a nice little combination of scholarship money coming in and that, and so then I knew that was going to be it.
And thinking about that time then, getting into playing collegiate sports, obviously an extreme challenge. Nonetheless, getting a college degree is an extreme challenge. So what would you say about that experience, or if you had any advice for other people that are looking to go that route and be a collegiate athlete?
Yeah, I would say, you have to put in the practice, and then doing the outreach, figuring out what schools you might, call the coaches, do whatever outreach you can do. If you're not being recruited and the coaches aren't coming after you, you have to be the one going out. And I mean, this was a while ago too, so I'm sure some of the process is different now. But I would say, don't be afraid to publicize yourself, put yourself out there, and make those phone calls, send those emails, whatever you can do to reach out to who you want to reach out to. And even if you're not recruited, you never know. You never know what kind of response you're going to get. And where I say that now, even with people trying to get working in the sports industry, if there's a league you want to work for, organization you want to work for, you reach out, you send emails, you try to contact these people on LinkedIn. You have to do that. And a lot of times, you never know what kind of response will come your way.
And reflecting back on, playing golf at Florida, what were some of the things that you learned from that experience or that you took away from it?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was a lot of perseverance. It was a lot of grit. It was a lot of staying with it. Yeah, the coach who had recruited me, she actually left after my sophomore year. So a different coach came in for my junior and senior year. And that was adapting to change. A lot of the girls that were on the team freshman and sophomore year, they transferred. But I definitely wanted to stay with the team, stay with UF, and adapting to a new coach. We had to learn to work with the new coach and learn her coaching philosophies, and then working with new team members that came in. I think a lot of it is it's you're adapting to environments and also and not being afraid to put in those kind of crazy hours for either practice or working out. We would still do workouts in the stadium at 6 a.m, which everyone thought, the golf team works out? Like, that's crazy, But we would go to the stadium, 6 a.m. We would run stadiums, up and down. We'd be in the weight room, with the football players, and they would all come and be like, what team is that, So, yeah, you have to put in those 6 a.m. hours and practice late till sun's down and be ready. That leads into, putting in hours once you're in the workplace as well.
Yeah, and it's really cool to hear you say that now, because in one of the articles I read that we were kind of researching, it mentioned the players were just highlighting you. It's like showing up to the 6 a.m. workouts and you're the first person with a smile on your face, excited to do the training, really bringing that aspect to the team. So from your perspective, if you had to break it down, do you have any certain memories or things from that time playing golf that you'll always hold on to?
For sure. Yeah, the friendships that came out of the team were amazing. Our team was made up of a lot of golfers from around the world. My first couple of years, we had a teammate from Spain, from Italy, from Japan. It was amazing to get to know these girls from different countries, and then they're lifelong friends. My teammate from Japan, I just saw her when I worked the Olympics in Tokyo, and we hadn't seen each other in 20 years, and it was just like we had just seen each other. It's the friendships and relationships that have been very meaningful. With my dad's European, so he connected a lot with my European teammates, and had a special bond with them. So it was fun. It was just, I can remember certain rounds that really stood out where, maybe it was a really rainy round or a difficult round and it was kind of miserable, but, you're still out there with your teammates in the same environment. And I specifically remember the final round. We played NCAA's my senior year in Oregon at the Sun River Resort in Oregon, and it was raining. The whole tournament was really rainy, and I do remember walking up the 18th hole on the last day, and this rainbow came out, and the rainbow just was right over the 18th green. I thought, wow, this is really cool, and that vivid memory of walking up 18 fairway. So yeah, a lot of really good memories, and just we had fun together too.
A lot of traveling, a lot of
travel.
Windshield time, as Brian calls it.
Yes, exactly. A lot of traveling. Yeah, driving in state, flying out of states. Learning how to just keep trying when you don't have a good round, but the next day is another round, and even if you shoot a bad score, you have to get out there the next morning and forget that bad round and be ready to play well the next day.
Yeah. And I really wanted to ask you about that too, because, golf is a team sport, but obviously very much an individual sport because, you're still competing against your teammates to make it to be the top 5 that play in the next tournament, right? So it's kind of that, it can be a tough relationship, I'm sure, at times. But, being that it is you versus you for, 72 shots out there, what were some of the things that you learned how to focus on the moment, to let bad shots go away? If you're having a good round, how do you prevent from getting ahead of yourself? How do you feel like you really trained yourself to stay in the moment, and some of the other things you learned to kind of just coach yourself through a round at that level?
Well, we would actually do mental game exercises where we would all sit around the conference room table at the clubhouse as a team, and we would sit there and we would close our eyes and we would visualize each hole at our home course at UF, and we would visualize playing that hole as a birdie, basically, your best shots on each hole. And you would sit there quietly and you would go through each hole and just prepare yourself for hitting that perfect shot to the, into the fairway, to the green. So it is a lot of mental game for the game of golf. I would say, it's just, if you hit a bad drive, you just, as easy as to say, you forget about that bad shot, but you have to just think about that next shot and where you want to place the ball and try to block out that bad shot. I tell my son that now because he's on the middle school golf team. And, I just tell him, you have to just focus on that green, forget about what you just did, just focus on the green, you're getting to the green. So it's just a lot of mental concentration and discipline and figuring out, try to focus only on one thing and block out everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what some people forget about golf is like it's easier to, hit a bad drive, maybe not where you want it. Okay, it's one bad shot, but a second bad shot or a third bad shot. I went to a collegiate golf tournament in Disney World, and I watched a girl post in tournament play, they might grade it down a little bit, but she posted like a 10 or 11 on a par 3. Yeah. And I felt so bad watching her walk up because she was crying, and her coach is over there, and I'm like, man, because it's one bad shot, it's two bad shots. Once you get to 3 or 4, it's like, oh my gosh, how do you bounce back coming from that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's very hard. And I've had plenty of rounds like that too, where, it sticks with you for 3 holes, and then you just got to think about something else, a favorite movie, a favorite song, something to distract yourself, and just try to think of something else to move forward. But you're right, you're talking about golf in general, you're fighting for that top 5, you're fighting for that top 6, which my son is doing right now on his team. And I think that was a big thing that I learned is that, I worked my way up each year. So my freshman year in high school, I didn't play really top 5, and those seniors were obviously very good players, and just each year you're lowering your score, you're getting your way into that top 6, top 5, and top 3, top 2, top 1, and that is what happened to me both in high school and in college. I did redshirt my freshman year, and took that year to really practice and get my game in a much better place, and each of the 3 years after that I played, each year was, just keep going, just keep trying, knowing that you're going to move up in that top 5, that you're going to play. And, we would have qualifying on Saturday mornings. So, even if the top 3 were set because of scoring averages, we would have Saturday, Sunday morning qualifying to see who would fill out the 4, 5, 6. So, being ready, then those felt like tournaments in itself, as the qualifying. So you had to be prepared. You're not going out on a Friday night. You're ready to go in and get to the course at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and qualify.
Yeah. And, we were talking to another college coach, and he was just talking about the importance of the maturation process over the course of from freshman year to senior year, and how the transfer portal in all sports is really, if things get tough now, it's easier for kids to leave. And just like you said, one of the first things you said about what your takeaway from golf was being able to adapt in different situations. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that by sticking and staying and keep playing, that you really start to figure things out. And that's something that really is going to help you more long-term than anything else. But I'm curious too, like, I know you mentioned visualization. Any other like books, mentors, any other super helpful advice you had over the course of, your time playing golf that really helped you kind of not perfect, but just, because it's always a process, but really helped you with the mental side of just managing emotions and everything else?
Yeah, my college roommate was a gymnast at Florida, and one of the top in the country. And so I remember, like, if I was worried about a tournament, I remember she would leave me little Post-it notes, and just say, have fun out there. And I feel like she was a very good influence for me, and always helped me. And she obviously didn't know anything about golf, but as a gymnast, she knew exactly, how to keep your mind focused. But she would see that I would kind of get upset with it. I remember she would always just say, have fun. She would remind me, just have fun. And, but yeah, the coaches, I really enjoyed, obviously the coach my first 2 years, she had a lot of faith in me. She saw potential, she saw talent, she wanted me to be on the team. She knew I'd be a good asset to the team, of someone who was going to work hard and be there for the other teammates. And, I'm very thankful that she gave me the chance to be there at Florida. I had various teachers over the years. There was a pro at the Gainesville Country Club who now is down in St. Augustine. He gave me a lot of lessons in high school when, that was my years to really get better, and he gave me a good lesson. So yeah, it's various people over the years. Obviously, my parents, my mom. I think my mom's a great athlete. My mom is an amazing skier. She was always one that was very much cheering me on and knew. She's like, you're gonna get this. Like when I couldn't get my back handspring in gymnastics, she said, you're gonna get this. Like, you're just as a matter of time, you're gonna get this. So and my dad, who would take me to practices. So yeah, a lot of people who very much influenced me along the way.
And golf has definitely been a consistency still over the most recent years, but your first job actually after you got out was with the LPGA, and you ended up doing that for about 4 years and traveled to 70 different tournaments working in media and really breaking into your first job. So tell us a little bit more about that and what that first experience was like breaking into the sports industry after finishing at UF.
Yeah, it was a great job. So my major at UF was public relations. I got to know a little bit about media relations through the sports information department at Florida. I did various internships with them and got to know that side of the business. And so I knew coming out of college I wasn't going to go pro. I still loved the game of golf very much. I did an internship myself with the AJGA, and then a girl who actually did the same internship was working at the LPGA Tour. So she had asked the AJGA for recommendations of the past summer's interns, and I was recommended to her. I went in, I remember like December 2000, interviewed with the LPGA, and then I started like the first week of January 2001, right after I graduated. And it just, the LPGA was a great place to work. It was such a family. We got to know the players, we got to know the players' families, we got to know the caddies, we got to know, the tournament directors, the staff that we traveled with in the communications department. Just a big family, really. Mm-hmm. And just really, it's such a time where I grew up learning about renting cars and making hotel reservations and doing all that. Because we'd be on the road for 2 weeks, be home for 2 weeks, be on the road for 2 weeks, home for 2 weeks. So it was just a lot of being on the road, and this is a long time ago. So this is before Google Maps. We would have like printed directions from the airport to the golf course.
No Ubers.
No Ubers. We'd rent a car.
DoorDash. The luxuries.
None of that. I mean, I don't even know how I found a lot of these golf courses and hotels, because literally leave the airport and would have to go, find them. So it was on our own, and so most of the time there was two of us that would work a tournament. And then my last couple of years at the LPGA, there was less of us, so there were only one of us that would run a media center each week. So that was a lot of hours each week of being in the media center, being in the media tent, and when you're on site, you're facilitating the interviews with the LPGA players. So pre-tournament interviews are always Tuesday, Wednesday, so you're setting up those in advance through the player agents. And then once the tournament starts on a Thursday, you're bringing in the leader interviews into the media tent. So when you're the only media coordinator on site, it's just a lot of juggling all day long, constantly coordinating interviews, and then working with like the local PR staff on any sort of media center operational needs, that type of thing. So it was a lot of long days. You know, you're getting to the course 8 a.m. and you're there hours after play is done, writing up a press release or sending out daily results. And so, you know, a lot of hours would be 8 to 8.
And what is that? I think you traveled to 70 different tournaments over the course of those 4 years. And I'm sure it really developed your communication skills, right? And learned a ton about kind of the behind the scenes of...
It did, exactly. And a lot of those tournaments were international. You know, we were in South Korea and Japan and Sweden. And so it was a great experience. Yeah, you know, and that's how I met my current boss now. So our agency that I work with now managed LPGA tournaments in Las Vegas and Los Angeles. So that's working those LPGA tournaments is how I got to know the agency that I work with. And so, yeah, you're meeting a lot of people. You know, you're meeting, you know, amazing people. I would say, you know, the tournaments that the LPGA would host tournaments at, you know, we'd meet presidents, you know, President Clinton, you know, former Trump used to host a tournament for the LPGA down in West Palm Beach. And so we would meet a lot of very influential people and celebrities. And it was, yeah, great 4 years.
So so you've been with BZA now for I think 17 years. Tell us about making that transition over to work with them and what caused you to make that switch.
Yeah, I was ready to get experience in other sports as well. I knew BZA worked the Super Bowl, and I knew they worked other events, beach volleyball, the Olympics. The client that BZA used to have was Speedo at the Olympics, and then most recently has been OMEGA, the Timekeeper. But so I knew BZA's client roster, and there was a position open in Los Angeles. And I don't know, I was 26 years old. I had already been doing the LPGA for 4 years, and the position came open in Los Angeles. And I thought, you know, this would be a great opportunity for me to learn more, to try something else. And you know what? I didn't know anyone in Los Angeles. And my godparents lived there, so I knew them. But I was moving from Daytona Beach to Los Angeles, and I thought, all right, let's do it. You know, and that is advice I give to people. I said, don't be afraid to move to a new city. If there's a job opportunity that you're really interested in, just, you know, don't be afraid. Just move. I mean, I remember figuring out how to ship my car from Orlando out to LA, and I stayed with my godparents for about 2 weeks until I found an apartment. And I remember driving around LA, just looking at apartments by myself, figuring out where to live, and found a nice little studio apartment and moved everything out there. My mom came out and helped me move all my stuff in, and it just, you know, being scared a little bit of moving to a new city that I didn't know, but it was a great experience. And BZA has been wonderful. You know, I was out in LA for a little while, and then my husband and I moved to New Jersey. So then I worked from my home office in New Jersey, right outside of Philly, for about 8 years. And then now we've been in Jacksonville since 2015. So it's been nice with the agency. I've been able to work from home. We travel so much that I see my boss and I see my coworkers at events. But the home base of the agency is still in Los Angeles.
And thinking back now, I mean, 17 years, you've lived in multiple places. I can only imagine the places you've visited, being with the Super Bowl and the Olympics and all these different areas. Do you have a favorite place you visit, or do you have a favorite event that you get to go to every year?
I would say there's quite a few amazing events. I know I've been very fortunate to work. Super Bowl every year is amazing. Working with the NFL Communications Department, there's always such a great team to work with, and then OMEGA, who has been our client for the Olympics, and OMEGA being a luxury brand as well, hosts some very nice events. And the 2016 Olympics in Rio was such a rewarding, crazy, exhausting, rewarding event where, you know, it was 3 weeks, and the things that we had to do in Rio was work on the timekeeping technology story with the media members, but then we also the OMEGA House was an event space where they would bring in their ambassadors from outside of sports to basically host these events. So, they would do a swimming night with Michael Phelps. They would do a golf night with Sergio Garcia and Rory McIlroy. So we'd bring in the athletes who Omega had ambassadors for, but it was a different theme every night for 14 nights straight. And each of these events would go till midnight, and then at midnight, we would have to send out a press release about that night's event with photos, and working with the video team on getting the B-roll package of these, the video, the photos. So, these nights would go into 1 or 2 in the morning, sending out information, and then you do it all the next day. Mm-hmm. So that was the most interesting thing I found just working Olympics was that nobody sleeps. The media members don't sleep. The event people don't sleep. The athletes don't sleep. You're meeting all the athletes. Everyone's just going on adrenaline for weeks. And Rio was a little bit of a challenging city to navigate, but it was so rewarding, and the athletes we got to work with. Omega has these ambassadors that Michael Phelps, and the chance to work with him multiple times, has been so amazing. And they do the America's Cup, so I got to work the America's Cup in Bermuda one year, and that was great. We hosted media members there, and most recently the Olympics in Tokyo, 2020 Olympics, which were actually in 2021, but that was a challenge because all the COVID protocols, obviously.
I was just about to ask, comparing and thinking about it.
Yeah, it was quite the event to work. We were there. We had all of our lockdown procedures the first couple weeks, but then we were able to host media members in a pavilion that Omega had set up to show all the timekeeping technology. And then they would bring in their ambassadors to do interviews in this pavilion, but no fans were allowed. But I was there to coordinate the media members who were there to do the timekeeping technology story. So Caleb Dressel is Omega ambassador. So we would bring him in to do his interviews, when he was done. And, so it's so fascinating to see these athletes in person and to work with them. And so I will say Omega at the Olympics it's been a lot of fun. Very fortunate to work those events.
So I really have to ask you this question. So from my understanding with what you're doing, you're basically helping kind of usher these athletes in kind of that in-between period from, all right, go get them to make sure they're here to be ready for the interview, right? So you do have a little bit of time for that small talk, right? So, obviously you've been around a lot of famous people. Have you learned anything to say or not to say in those little small talk moments, or anything that you found to be effective? Because I'm sure they get a million questions and random. They do. Yeah, I think the small talk is good because in that moment, they just want to be treated as a regular person, right? So it's almost like, how's your day? Keeping it very simple. Like with the golfers, it's, obviously they've had a great round if we're bringing them in, PGA Tour players and LPGA players. So we'll say, oh, great round out there today, or if it was a really windy day, be like, boy, that wind today, just keeping it very simple. They don't, nothing too crazy.
Not slipping ask for an autograph real quick.
No, very much against the rules. No autographs, and if there is downtime, we've been able to get pictures with them. Certainly don't, post those pictures or anything like that. But, if there's a group together and there's an appropriate moment to take that photo, it's been very nice to be able to have those opportunities to meet and just to see, being around Tiger Woods, we've worked, I haven't worked with him recently, but for my first couple of years of BZI, we did a lot of his tournaments. And you're right, just being in the press room with him, it's just very fascinating to be around these people who are so successful.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I've seen Tiger now twice at the Masters last year. Me and Brian were there, and then at TPC when he won back in 2013, I think is when he won at TPC last. And it's crazy because we had just moved to Ponte Vedra, and I didn't even really understand golf, but the whole vibe, not to mention at the Masters when he came out, we saw both his birdies that day. That was absolute eruption. But at TPC when he won, I had no idea what's going on. It would just be this sea of people. It'd go from real move around, you could roll down the hill and have fun, whatever, to shoulder to shoulder.
You always know what Tiger is on the course. Yep.
So we were just talking too before we started the episode about I'm 20. I know a ton of people in the process of wanting to break into the sports industry. They're every most of the outgoing conversationalist people I know that also enjoy sports all go towards like the sports management, sports administration, business. I guess PR, we could get into a few of those other ones, but what advice would you have for someone that wants to potentially be in a similar position that you are within the sports industry?
Yeah, I would say find out about any internship possibility, any volunteer experience opportunity, all those little bits. A lot of times if we're looking at somebody, we'll see what experience they've had, even if it's a 1-month internship. Just meeting people. And then when you do those internships, or if you do meet someone, follow up with whoever's in charge of that event, follow up with them, send them an email, whether it's just a thank you email, or if you're interested in learning more about something, don't be shy to communicate with the people you meet with. Send a thank you note. If it's been an amazing internship, you thank that person that you've worked with for the summer. So just get as much experience as you can, even if it's volunteering in a media center. We have volunteers for our PGA Tour event in Orlando and our LPGA tournament in Orlando. It's students in the Orlando area who come and volunteer in our media center. And a lot of them we've kept in touch with. The duties in the media center for that type of tournament is handing out, a press release, or handing out, things to the media members that are sitting at their desks, or else just, recording an interview at the flash quote area. They're small tasks, but you're there in the media tent. You're seeing what's going on in a media tent. You're understanding just firsthand what the PR person's doing, what the media members are doing. And then even if you get that opportunity to talk with it, if you want to be in PR specifically, talk with journalists as well, and just kind of get to know their side of things. For us being in PR, a key component are the relationships we build with the media members. We're pitching story ideas. We want to make sure we know who we're pitching. We want to pitch the right media member, the right story. And just maintaining those relationships. Since we work these events in Orlando, specifically the golf media, we're very close with the Orlando media, very close with the golf media. A lot of them we consider family as well. So it's, just those relationships I think are huge. Getting the experience wherever you can, and then keeping those relationships, whether it's on LinkedIn, email, text, whatever. Just stay in touch with who you meet.
Yeah, I like that too, just about showing initiative. I think that's definitely something that stands out and is memorable, especially with, when you see a young person that's taking initiative. So I was going to ask you about just, kind of the work-life balance. I know you mentioned 17 years on the road a good bit. You've got, 2 kids, 10 and 13, and Jake, obviously, he's a CEO. So tell us about what you've learned through that process and what, kind of helps keep you grounded and centered and between work and family.
Yeah, I will say it takes a lot of people to keep it all going. But yes, obviously I have a very supportive husband who wants me to travel. As soon as I got the call to go to Tokyo, we knew how hard the 3 weeks were that I was in Rio. And then I said, all right, it's going to be 3 weeks again, Tokyo. And Jake's like, of course, you're working the Olympics. Like, we'll figure it out, absolutely go.
Super dad.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate. We have one really good babysitter here in Jacksonville. Mary, thank you for everything you do to help us. And, she knows our routines and taking the kids to their sporting events, and my sister is here in Jacksonville as well. So having the family here to help. My parents are still in Gainesville, so my mom will come over. My mother-in-law lives in California, but she has literally flown in for weeks at a time to help, so we're very fortunate to have family helping us, babysitters, and Jake keeps things moving along. He'll travel some for his work as well. But I would say it's a lot of calendar planning. We'll literally sit there and keep just looking at the calendar and make sure that we have everything organized. And a lot of times, it's planning, even when I'm gone next week, at the NFL draft, and I'm missing my son's golf matches Monday and Tuesday, and my daughter's in the Hendricks talent show, and so I'm missing all those things. But coordinating a lot what needs to be done now in advance before I leave on Monday. So planning and a lot of good help.
Yeah. And something I want to ask you as you're talking about this is, it's a kind of a double-edged sort of love what you do, never work a day in your life. And that's what people like to say, at least. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's not always the way the cookie crumbles, being that, things are challenging. It's hard to have to leave the kids. You're going to Tokyo and you're going to be around Caleb Dressel and all these other amazing athletes, but you miss the talent show or something like that at home. So when you think about all these hard decisions you've made, even from moving to LA, taking new job opportunities, missing family events, what makes it really worth it for you, or how do you approach these tough decisions when you think about weighing out your opportunities and pursuing them?
Yeah, well, you're right. I do love what I do. I feel like I'm very fortunate to work for a great agency and to go to these amazing events. You do have to love it very much, and you have to know what comes with it. You have to know that everything, but knowing I do have the support from my family, 100%, it makes it a lot easier. And yeah, I think for anyone who wants to pursue whatever career they're going after, stick with it. I would say, sports PR, we're not making a lot of money, so you're figuring out the balance of what the benefits are. And for me, going to these amazing events, I really enjoy them. I really enjoy the people I work with. That makes it all worthwhile, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so many tough decisions. That's like the one thing I've navigated, and obviously everyone navigates, but one thing I find with young people especially is it is like a weight on your shoulders. Like you want to think that, everyone says like, oh, one decision isn't going to change the world. It's like, well, one decision very well could change the next 20 years of my life. Just like, this decision to move to BZA did for you. So I think that's just a really tough thing to navigate. And hearing from, people like yourself and Brian about navigating those steps and kind of just graciously moving through it and going with the motions, I think is so valuable for anyone listening.
Yeah, 100%. And when I moved to Los Angeles, that's where I met Jake. He was working out in LA. So, I think things happen for a reason. I think you definitely have to be passionate about what you do. My nephews are at the University of Florida right now. I know they're, considering their different career paths, and you have to just really just be passionate about what you're doing and go for it, and I do see that with Jake, with Downtown Vision here in Jacksonville, and he's very passionate about it, and I think that passion really takes you a long way, and it gets you up in the morning. It gets you excited to put in those long hours. I would say, especially event PR, really long hours for every event we have to do, and you just know that overall I'm at this amazing thing working with these very cool people. So forget it that we're here for 14 hours, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and on that note with Jake, I know because you guys are living in California, New Jersey, now Jacksonville, and he's worked with Downtown Vision now for 8 years and basically helping draw more business and events to downtown Jacksonville. So you go to a lot of local events. So kind of share with us where some of the passion that you guys have for Jacksonville and what you guys really enjoy about living here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, we absolutely love it. I'm from Gainesville, but I really never came to Jacksonville much growing up. And Jake is from New Jersey and California. And he got the opportunity to be with Downtown Vision here, and it was perfect fit for him, and it brought us to Florida. And now that we've been here, we love this area, the whole downtown area. We love our neighborhood. Our neighborhood has great families, so close to a ton of things to do. My sister's down in St. Johns County, so I'm close to her. She's, 30, 40 minutes away. But it's nice. Like I can still go to the beach and meet her at the beach or something. So for us, it's important that we have family in the area. But yeah, it's just such an amazing community. The day we moved into our house in the neighborhood, I feel like all the neighbors came out and welcomed us in the neighborhood, and such good schools. We love the Hendricks School. Our daughter's there, and our son is at Landon, and we feel like the community has just been amazing, really. And like you're saying, all these events in downtown, we do like to go to all the events, and Downtown Vision puts on quite a few great events as well. Like last night was River Jams, and the concert. So we went to the concert last night, brought the kids, and so that's been every Thursday this April, and it's great to go to with friends and the family, and even like this weekend is the Sandlot Fitness Festival downtown, put on by Go Ruck and
Jason McCarthy,
exactly. So we'll be out there tomorrow, Saturday. So I feel like there's always something to do. We're with the Comer or the museums. We're members of Epping and the swim team there. So we just feel like we're a part of a lot of really good groups. and it's just the potential of the area and the beautiful waterfront. It's just a really, really nice area. We're very happy that we've moved here.
Yeah, I've fallen in love with it too, because I've lived down here now for 3 years basically, but after growing up in Fernandina, I always say like I would never live in Jacksonville. I tried to go to UNF. That was my only choice at going to Jacksonville. And I think what I really like about Jacksonville is you have so many high-achieving, compassionate, caring people, almost like a big city, but very community-based, just like you were saying. Like, I think the Sandlot event that Jason McCarthy launched last year is the coolest thing, and I didn't get to go last year. I probably won't make it tomorrow or this weekend, but those community events, they actually feel like community events. They're not like you go to Fort Lauderdale or Miami, it's like a community event that people are flying in for. It seems like a lot of the stuff around San Marco, Riverside, through downtown, it's just very community-based, and it's like the people you see in the community every day and things like that actually like to go to those events.
Yeah, that's exactly what we found too. So we just recently did the wine and chocolate 5K in San Marco, and that was great. The families out there, and then my daughter's friends and other families, and we all ran together. And same thing for the Festival of Lights 5K. That's at Christmas. We all ran that together. So you're right, whatever, or if it's the wine down in the parks in San Marco, there's just so many events for everything. And I feel like we keep ourselves busy for sure.
I wanted to ask you too, you mentioned earlier that, your 13-year-old son's getting into playing golf. Any advice for, as a parent with a kid getting into a sport like that's kind of somewhat following in your footsteps? Obviously, you don't want to put too much pressure. So tell us kind of your mentality with him kind of getting into that, and your mentality as a parent supporting him.
Yeah, I'm trying not to put too much pressure on him. I know. Jake tells me a little bit. Sometimes he's like, all right, back off a little bit. But, I think patience is key. He's trying to break into that top 6 right now, and just even the matches this spring, his score has improved each match. And I told him, I said, same thing. It's just waiting for it to happen. I said, you put in the practice, your scores will drop. Patience. I think just patience is such a big part of it. And I told him, I said, when I was in 7th grade, I was still shooting really high scores, and it just each year my score has dropped. My score has dropped each year. I said, so if you really want to stick with it, just it'll happen. It'll happen. You just have to practice and keep with it, and don't give up. It just is a matter of putting in the work, putting in the hours, and for me, being patient with him. I'll try to pull up videos online to show him some swing tips or putting tips, here and there. And he does take lessons from one of the pros out at San Jose Country Club, so that's good. I feel like he's getting lessons, and then I can help along the way. He does listen to me, but it's helpful for him to get lessons from the outside source as well. So I think, I've been trying to take him out more to play on the weekends, and I can see it. He's very into it now. He wants to watch the Netflix show and to learn more about the PGA Tour players, and so it's fun to see him get more into it, and I just I can't get too upset, right?
Definitely
that hole.
Yeah, definitely make sure he's grateful for it, because I'll tell you, I wish I could play every day like a middle schooler now, because golf's one of those things you just get to be outside with good friends or family. That's why I really appreciate the game, is just being able to step outside, turn the phone off, and enjoy the weather. Golf capital of the world. I mean, you might as well get into it around here. But you just named one thing being patient. So being a high-performing athlete in the past, now a high-performing business professional, you obviously work with an amazing company at BZA, but you also encounter a lot of these high-level athletes like we've talked about. What are some, or even just another quality that you think is synonymous among all these top achievers you get to spend time with?
I think probably one thing is just a good attitude, a good attitude and being positive. I have seen people who've gotten so down on themselves, from a bad performance, and that's not gonna help you, right? You have to have a good attitude, keep going, not giving up, and just, like we say, that perseverance, really, just not, just keep going. I would say, being flexible. I've seen, people who maybe something comes along, maybe like on the golf course, if a caddy isn't helping you or something like that, and you have to switch caddies or something, you got to just be ready to adapt to change as well.
And I just have one last question, but because I know you've traveled, all over the world, and you and Jake take a lot of trips. Favorite place you've ever been?
Well, I will say so Jake and I did take a 7-month round the world trip before we settled down in New Jersey, and we did backpacking for 26 countries in 7 months. Wow. So we saw a lot. We did one really big trip. We were very fortunate to go see Bora Bora, which was, an amazing place. Obviously, we're never going to go back there. So, these kind of very far away places that are very difficult to get to. But once you're there, it's just an unbelievable thing to see. We did enjoy New Zealand a lot on our travels. And honestly, one of the places we loved was Croatia. So I know a lot of people are going there. My dad's from the Czech Republic. So just we were in Europe. We saw family in Czech Republic and saw a lot of Eastern Europe. And then we went to the islands of Croatia, and that was amazing. And it's a very inexpensive place. And we stayed in a woman's house, This is before Airbnb, but kind of an Airbnb type situation. But that was a beautiful place. So we were very fortunate to see some pretty cool places.
Yeah, I love that. And did you do that after, I guess you might have spent some time at BZA before you took a little hiatus for the trip?
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, we did. I was out after we left LA. So I guess it was the fall of 2006. Jake actually had really wanted to travel. He had already been to Nepal and done trekking in Nepal and just had this idea to backpack and do, stay as cheap as we can, youth hostels, backpacking, and just see as much as we can. And I was like, yeah, that's okay. My parents met in Austria, so since my dad's Czech, and my mom was backpacking around Austria when they met. And I thought, oh, yeah, well, my mom, she did the whole backpacking thing. I can do this backpacking thing. So, we just chose to take a little 7 months, and then I was able to come back to BZA.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here today and just sharing all your amazing insight into the industry and playing sports and raising kids and everything. So we really appreciate you being here today. And as you know, the Grit Creed are 12 principles that the company and the summer camp and a lot of what we do is really built on. So looking at that now, what part of the Grit Creed resonates most with you and why?
I would say right here in the middle, I will try again. It's probably the story of my life, story of my career. Keep trying. I think that's so key. And it gets you to where you want to go, but you just have to stick with it. Try again.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Dan, thanks again for being here today. It's been a lot of fun. If anyone's looking to connect or kind of find you, I'm sure you're on LinkedIn. And you said BZA, it's, spell it out real quick.
Yeah, it's Brenner, Zweikel and Associates, PR. And my LinkedIn has my maiden name in there as well. So Dana Von Loda Gordon in my LinkedIn. Please reach out for sure. Happy to connect with anyone who's interested in sports PR, sports management. Happy to give advice, anything like that. Just let me know.
Thanks again, Dana. We really appreciate it. Sure. That's all for today at the Grit.org podcast. Share this with someone you think it would resonate with or impact. Thank you again, Dana. Tune in for our next episode. That's it for today at the Grit.org podcast.